well, they realised that like my mates, that we always, we always did it together. See, I was in the Cameron Highlanders, the militia before the war, and then we all decided we'd join the AIF. And my brother, he had to put his age up when Mum and Dad agreed to sign say he could go and with us. Yeah. But I didn't go to the Burma Railway. He went to the. See, I was in the Changi Hospital when he went up north to work on the Burma Railway. So I didn't know when he was alive myself until I got released and back in Manila. That's when they used to put lists up, prisons recovered, and that was when I realised my brother was still alive, and two of my mates as well. One was all right. Two was all right, but one of them had died. Then you got the different diseases, beriberi, malaria, where the skin would come off your tongue, yeah. And your beriberi, your feet, or they used to call it happy feet. You couldn't sleep for night time, your feet would be aching that much. You'd have to get up and walk. You see all the guys walking around, and then you'd be dead tired, and you'd finish up, you'd be going to sleep in the daytime, you wanted to sleep at night time. It was shocking. Yeah, it's, mainly going around on the parties I worked on was to go and where all the food dumps were out in the jungle part of Singapore. They wanted to confiscate all the tins of bully beef and biscuits and all that, and they had us working and taking them from the jungle and put them in houses where they'd probably shot all the Chinese, so they used these houses for storage and scrounging all the stuff. Well, that, of course, that would eventually been shipped back to Japan, because we know that because when I went to Japan, we used to have the job of working, unloading the ships, all the loot that they brought in from down south. I can tell you a funny part at one time. We were bringing these cases of bully beef into this house, and the little Jap, he's only a short guy, and he finished up, he calls into the room, and he could only say a couple of words of English. He said, "Australians bastardos." And he got up on one of the boxes, because he was that short, stood on a box, and he grabbed hold of one of the guy's Aussie slouch hats. He put a tin of bully beef on the top of this box, and he put the hat on top of it. He says, showing us how we were thieving a tin of bully beef. When you lift the hat up, the tin of bully beef was gone. They stole it underneath his nose. He couldn't, of course, he went put on a show about that, but because we all started to laugh, made him feel really small. There's only 1 against 30 of us, and so he had to see the joke, how he was beaten right in front of him. Yeah. Yeah. I can remember when I was in the hospital there, through my eyesight, this guy in charge was called Blackjack Callaghan. Anyhow, this day, Blackjack had come over to the hospital to visit some of the boys, and this guy, just an ordinary old pair of shorts, and that, he pulled him up. He said, "Hey, you know who I am?" No? He said, I'm Colonel Callaghan, CEO of the Australian Sea. The guy said to him, do you know who I am? He said, no. Who are you? He said, I'm Sir Julian Taylor, the second surgeon to the King. He said, I think I deserve a salute. Yeah, we thought it was a bit of a joke. Yeah, it was put over blackjack. South African Red Cross ship came into Singapore, and the Japanese allowed it to come in, and they took off all the medical supplies, and I was given a spoonful of Marmite 3 times a day. Stopped me from going totally blind, and the guys on either side of me were blind. Their eyesight came back to be able to see, yeah. How they got on after that, I don't know. When I came home, I used to feel terrible because a lot of people thought I stuck up. Because people's faces, like, well, look at you now, I can't see a complete face. It's all parts of a face. And the further you get away, well, I can't recognise them at all. And it used to be embarrassing. You think people think I was stuck up, and it gets it. It used to get me down a bit about that. But over the years, I got used to it. Yeah, on the way over, there was 11 ships in my convoy. It was an old tramp ship house called the Wales Maru, and I think it took us about. I think it was nearly 3 weeks to get to Japan, and I was on board up on deck where I was to do the hair cutting, and this day the siren went on the boat, bah, bah, and the whole Japs went running everywhere, and next thing there was this thing shot across the front of our boat. It was a torpedo. There was a Japanese cruiser was escorting 11 ships, this one cruiser, and they fired 2 torpedoes at it, and they missed it. They never hit the ship. But they dropped depth charges. The depth charges made the boats, the engine on our boat conk out. We were left bobbing around in the ocean, and the other 10 ships left us. Oh, so this is lovely. We left. We didn't know whether they'd got the submarine or what happened. We thought, well, it comes back there, he'll definitely be able to get us this time. And of course, 2 days later, the siren went again. We thought, well, and we're all herded down below. They put the hatch on, the canvas on top of that. We couldn't have got out, so it was just a matter of waiting to be torpedoed. And we heard that firing the gun up the front of the boat, not the back of the boat. And all went quiet, and we heard this laughter going on. And it turned out it was a piece of bamboo was bobbing around in the ocean. And they thought it was a telescope for the submarine. But we were pleased. So we managed to get to Moji, Japan, a long time after the other boats. Lots of times when you're working in Japan, you worked in the rain and snow, and your clothes got soaking wet. Some of the guys were too tired to change, and the killer over in Japan was pneumonia. So yeah, I did everything in my power to make sure that as soon as I got home, I changed the hot, warm clothes. I always have a change of clothes. As I say, some guys were too tired, and a lot of the guys, you could tell when being a prisoner of war for so long, they had had enough. And if they got a sickness, you could tell that they didn't want to fight on anymore. When we got to Japan, it was we were hated by the civilians, and the kids going to school used to throw stones and spit and yell out, "Horry-o," and put their hands up, rub it into it all. But as the war went on, and you could tell the war was changing to our side, they were getting us, they'd tell us where there was stuff to steal and get some for them. Even the Japanese guards, they'd have us take it out because they never got searched by customs. Well, they got searched by customs, but we never. We got searched by the army. So they were very cunning. They got us to take it through customs. As soon as they're out of sight of the customs, they'd have to hand it over to them. But then you got back to the camp, even though you had stolen stuff on you, you got searched, you got bashed up, so it depends on what you had and the quantity you had. You got bashed up. They wouldn't stick up for you, but some of the Jap guards would, knowing that we'd do the same thing for them another time. So you got to know the Jap guards. They're all nicknamed. Horseface, Yagi, that's the Japanese word for goat, Chinless Wonder, Smiler, Gentleman Jim, Maxie, because he looked like Maxie Bear the boxer. We had nicknames for them all. And this guy that I'd become very friendly with, I never ever knew him before I was a prisoner of war, Jack Gilding from South Australia. And well, one of the first jobs I had in Japan was I had to go into a bin and shovel this black graphite dust out. And where I went in, it was only big enough for me to get in. Then I had to shovel this in. I could only stay in for so long. I had to wear a mask, and I had to be white paste over my face. And if you didn't have that paste on, as soon as the sun hit you and melted it, it'd burn your skin. And my eyesight being bad as it was making me was I going to go blind? And I complained, but this chap was a mongrel of a chap. We called him Speedo. He made me, I had to go in. He was the boss, I had to go in. And this South Australian boy, Jack Gilding, he volunteered. No, he said, I'll go in. And we became very good friends, and we finished up, we convinced this Speedo you could make a shovel and pull it out. Now we need to go and scoop it out. And he agreed, and that's what they did. So Jack and I became very good friends, and we still work on, we put on pushing these trolleys like they use in the mines. And we finished up, we thought, well, we're going to win this guy over. So we got him to say, I'm Johnny's son, and Jack Gilding was Jack Gilding, so he was Jackie's son, and he was Speedo's son. And to finish up, we got him to learn more English, and it's unbelievable how we won him over. As I say, the mad doctor, because he was crazy. When we first went to Japan, we didn't have to work on Sundays. Then Sundays, you work Sundays as well. Then you got one Sunday off a month. And if he was in charge of that day, he'd rather be at work, a beggar. It was a torture to be because we were in a warehouse, 3-story warehouse, and he was so torturous towards you. He'd come up, I was on the first floor. He'd have us count in Japanese, louder, more louder. You'd be shouting, and there was 3 sections on the floor, and you'd have each section counting loud. Then you race up the steps to the second one. You have them running on the spot, faster. You could hear them run on the spot. So you duck down to try and catch you, so you were still counting. It was torturous, and especially if you'd been drinking sake. I remember one day I was washing my clothes, and I heard this click, clock, click, clock, click. It was him. I didn't know it was him because all he had on was his naked bone had a fundushi. Instead of underpants, they wear what I call a fundushi. And that's all he had on, this fundushi. And I didn't know it was the Mad Doctor. And of course he grabbed hold of me, swung me around, whacked me across the face because I just didn't salute him. I didn't know because he was naked. So that was the sort of guy he was. And another time, in the winter time, you were never allowed to have a shower. And we had the guys that were good at picking locks. They could pick the lock because the showers were locked up for the winter time. These guys would pick the lock and we'd go and have a shower. We're all down to the shower and it was freezing cold. You just dive in and get to wash, because you've been working in a coal boat, you're covered in black dust, and in walks Mad Doctor. Whips off his sword, and you made you stay under that shower, there's freezing cold water coming down, and you'd make you turn around so he could whack you across the backside with his sword. He was torturous, yeah. Well, apparently he got hung after the war. I saw the records after the war, and he was one guy that did hang, yeah, from Kobe, the Mad Doctor. Miyataki, I think his name was, yeah. I'll say, we were bombed out. It was a fantastic sight, Rebecca, unbelievable. I'll never see fires like it again. And Kobe is has a big mountain range, goes right through from Osaka. I don't know how far south it goes. When the Americans come over, they bombed. They come over and they bombed with 500-pound oil bombs first. The next wave would come over and drop incendiary bombs. And on the mountains, it looked like lava running down the mountain. The incendiaries lighting up the oil bombs that exploded and spilt the oil everywhere. And it was just like lava running down the mountainside. Then they used to bomb in like in a circle. And all the houses in Kobe were, say, 2 and 3 stories high, weatherboard, pine wood. Inside was all mats and stuff. So you can just imagine those poor civilians had their air raid shelters dug in their houses and in their laneways, and they just got cooked. Flames were shooting thousands of feet into the air. So we were able to see this because we were in a warehouse that had, the windows had steel bars and a big steel shutter, shut so that they could be shut up so no weather could get in when it was raining and snowing, and we could look out and see what was going on. And the poor civilians that were there, must have been thousands killed, cooked. Terrible. This area where our Kobe, we called it Kobe House, and we thought they must have known it was a prison camp here. They missed us. That wasn't right though. Yeah, we were just about ready to go to work, and 7 o'clock in the morning, and the air raid sirens were going, and then you could hear the planes coming. And the sound got a lot closer. Then all of a sudden we heard the bomb was coming down. And the 500-pound oil bomb hit our building. So it was a 3-story building with an attic up top. The attic was stacked with all the winter clothes, blankets, grey coats, and it stopped the bomb from coming right through on us. But we'd all gone down from the guys on the top floor had come down to the first floor. Our floor was packed, but we couldn't get out because 2 big steel doors padlocked on the outside, so we were locked in and we were ablaze. But the English, they were in a warehouse next to us. We were only separated by like a width of a car. Being 2 warehouses together, and they were lucky. The bomb blew a wall out. They were able to get out, and they made the Jap guard unlock us and let us out. Otherwise, we'd never be here. And they marched us to work this morning, and when we got there, they left us standing, and you could see they were all congregating around the main office. I think it was called Sampaku, the shipbuilding people, and Stevedore and Company. And then we saw women start to cry, even some men crying. That's strange. And a while after that, they came and said, "Oh, no work today, we're going back to camp." They never said anything about the war being finished, just said, "There's no work today, we're going back to camp." Because we had to start march back to camp. By that time, there's these other working parties from along the wharf, they were marching back, and they called out, "What do you know?" And because some of the Japs had broken the news to some of the boys. A Japanese word for war was censor, and awari means finish. They say censor awari. I hope it's true, because we all knew that if there had been a landing in Japan, we wouldn't have got out. They wiped us all out, because we'd been drilled to be ready at a minute's notice to be taken out onto the road. I knew that was going to be the end. And we got back to camp. This one, this Japanese, he'd never known to hit the guys, and he was sort of a bit, try and get you out of trouble. He said, "Censor awari, war finish." And he and a couple of these Japanese guards, they went away and they come back with cases of oranges and apples and dished them out with. So we knew then the war was over. Well, the next day, over comes the big brown B-29 bombers were dropping these 40-gallon drums. Some were welded together. One was full of food, another one was full of clothing. Some were just single, and the parachutes were all different colours. And it was a beautiful sight to see them coming down. And the only ones that got injured was the Japanese, because when they came down, they come down really fast. And apparently a couple lost their lives trying to get there when they hit the ground, but they got hit the ground, they hit them as well. Yeah. But a lot of the stuff got squashed as well. I mean, hit the ground too hard. It was solid landing on a road, and a lot of it was squashed it bust the 40-gallon drum open. But most of the food was saved, and the clothing.